Hi again, Year 11. Welcome back to another wee walkthrough video for your next piece of coursework. Hopefully this is the last one of these that I'll have to do, and we'll maybe be in the classroom again for the next piece of work that we do. But well done for all the work that you've done so far. I'm really impressed with what you've been sending through and how you've been able to stay on top of this stuff and essentially do it yourself with the help of, yes, these videos do help, but it's very difficult. So really appreciate all the work that you're doing, and hopefully we'll be back in school soon and it'll be a little bit easier for us. So this next task is your P4 task. It's a past task, so it needs to be finished. This definitely needs to be achieved, otherwise you wouldn't pass this unit. So it's quite a big one. If you've read the instructions or if you've looked through this before I've done this video, you'll probably see that it is quite a large piece of coursework. And you'll see that I've also said to you on Satchel that if you were to split it up and do it over the course of these 4 weeks, then it will not be as overwhelming, hopefully. There's different things we have to do in this piece of work, and I'm going to talk you through that bit by bit, and it will make a lot more sense to you if you follow this video as opposed to just trying to read through this on your own. Yeah, right, so we'll start off. So what we have to do in your P4 task is you have to explain the appeal of 3 different locations to different kinds of customers, different types of travellers. So the first thing I've got for you here on the board is 3 different types of visitors. And I've said to you which types of visitors are shown by these images and what specific needs would they have if they went on holiday. So I've got a family with young children, I've got a group of school children or college students, and then the third one is a older couple. So if those 3 different types of customers were to go on holiday, their holidays would look quite different. They would have different needs, and they would be appealed to different places. The older couple wouldn't want to go to the same places that the family with young children would want to go to, and that's the sort of thing you need to think about throughout this piece of work. So I have here the information and the instructions from the specification. So in that yellow box, I have outlined what we have to do. So I'm going to bring you to this one, the P4 one. It says, describe how one UK town or city destination, one seaside resort, one countryside area can appeal to 2 different types of visitors. So that's what I've already said. So you're going to look at a city destination, a seaside resort, and a countryside area, and you're going to look at 2 different kinds of visitors, and you're going to research those 3 locations and how they appeal to those types of visitors. Now, the point of this slide is I have split this up for you so you can see that I've also outlined this box. This box is a level 1 pass, but what we all need to achieve is P4, which is level 2 pass. Level 1 is essentially like half of a GCSE. So the main difference between the half and the full GCSE is that there is more information. So I've said here you need to describe to achieve the level 2 pass. The level 1 pass, you're just outlining information. So what the difference is between those is describe just has lots more information, lots more detail, and that's what makes this piece of work more lengthy. There's going to be loads of detail in this. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to show you is this blue table, which shows you a list of different visitor types. And you can read through this in your own time. You can pause me and you can see that there's all these different types of visitors. This is telling you their characteristics, so basically what they're like. And then the final column is showing you their needs as a customer. So a family with young children will have different needs from a school group, or a visitor with specific needs, or non-English speaking visitors. So said here, there are many different types of visitors with varying needs. Look carefully at the different visitor types, what their characteristics are, and the specific needs that they have. This information will help you with your P4 coursework task. So we'll come back to this in a second. I'll show you what you have to do with this. So this is the main piece of instruction then that you need for your coursework. So I've said P4 coursework task, you are going to research 3 UK tourist destinations, and I have given you which ones they are. So for your city destination, you're going to do Belfast. For your seaside resort, you're going to do Portrush. and for your countryside area, you're going to do Fermanagh. So everybody is going to be doing those 3 locations. So everyone's 3 locations will be the same. So you can't choose a different place within the UK. So for each of those destinations, you must create a brochure or information posters that describe the appeal of that destination to 2 different types of visitors. For example, and I've given you more visitor types here, but this is essentially just the same information as this blue table. You have a choice. You can choose your visitor types. You need to choose 2, and I've said that at the bottom. If that would go away. Is it going to go away? Yep, there we go. You need to have the same 2 visitor types for your 3 destinations. So if you're talking about Belfast, for example, for the instructions, or sorry, for the example pieces of work throughout this, I choose families with young children and older couples, I think. So you talk about the appeal of that destination for those 2 types of customers, and you do it the same for each of the 3 destinations. You can choose whichever types of customers or visitors that you want, so you can read through that and familiarise yourself. Some visitor types will be easier to find information on than others, so choose wisely. Right, so what we mean by appeal then, so I've said that you need to research the appeal of those 3 destinations for your types of visitors. So what we mean by appeal is this: you must consider the following key aspects of appeal for your 3 destinations. So I've split this up into 7 different sections, and you must cover all 7 of these throughout your 3 destinations. So I'll go through each one, I'll tell you what it is. Some of them are a bit more straightforward than others, and I will also give you an example piece of work for each one. So for visitor attractions, which is the first one, you have to cover 2 different attractions within each location. So if you do Belfast, you pick 2 attractions. If you're doing then your Portrush one next, 2 different attractions. And then Fermanagh, 2 different attractions. And it's the same for each one of them. So 2 different natural features for each location. Accommodation, 1 for each type of visitor for each location. 2 different kinds of facilities within each of your locations, etc., etc. I've said ensure that your descriptions for each destination are focused on how they appeal for both of your chosen customer or visitor types. So that's going back to what I was saying about achieving a level 2 pass. You need to say how these things appeal to this type of visitor. Okay, and so I've said there, for example, when talking about Portrush as your seaside resort, you must describe how it appeals as a destination to both families and older people. You don't need to do families and older people. Your 2 visitor types might be different to mine. Okay, so the other thing I've done on this slide is you can click on each one of these and it will take you to each one. So you could use this as like a table of contents. You could use this as a like a tick list, and you could then go through each one, make sure you know what it is, make sure you know what you need to cover, and then you could click and it would take you to like that information specifically. So what I've said here is throughout the rest of the slides, you'll be given information about those 7 different key aspects of appeal, which you must cover for your 3 locations. You'll be given an example of work after each key aspect of appeal, and remember you must describe how that appeals to both visitor types that you choose. Okay, so the first key aspect of appeal is a visitor attraction. You can read through that, I'm not going to read it to you. A visitor attraction is essentially something that's man-made. I've got this really nice table that gives you some types of attractions and then examples of them. So museums, zoos, theme parks, they're all built by people, and that is a visitor attraction, something that attracts you to that location. So for your 3 destinations, you have to think, what is there in Portrush, what is there in Fermanagh, what is there in Belfast that's a visitor attraction, and how is it going to appeal to both of my 2 customers. So here's my example piece of work. I've only done the first visitor attraction. Remember, you have to do 2 for each location. So I would have another paragraph after this and I would choose a different visitor attraction. Perhaps I might choose the Titanic building. But for this one, I've chosen Belfast Castle. And then you can see that I have split it up into 2 sub-paragraphs, and I've said this is how it attracts young people, or this is how it appeals to young people, and this is how it appeals to families with young children. And that's basically the format you have to follow. Obviously, I'm only giving you a little snippet of an example. You have to remember to do 2 visitor attractions. Okay. Also, I've included a picture of Belfast Castle, a location from Google Maps. Those are the sorts of things that you can include in your coursework as well. Okay, the second key aspect of appeal is natural features. So these are not man-made, these are natural things that exist on their own. So mountains, lakes, beaches, etc. And here are a couple of examples. So these are, this is for Fermanagh, Loch Earn in Fermanagh, and then this is Downhill Beach, I think it is. I just stuck those into Google, like natural features, Portrush, natural features, Fermanagh, and then those come up. Here's another way that I've given you this. So depending on what natural features you choose throughout your 3 destinations, here are some of the things which you can include as why they appeal to customer type A and why they appeal to customer type B, whatever it is you've chosen. So these are just some little buzzwords and sentences that you can use. So it's good for exercise if you're talking about, like, well, any kind of visitor would that would apply to. Wildlife, that might appeal to older couples. Amazing views, that would appeal to anyone. So those are the sorts of things that you need to, these are your explanations as to why they are appealing, okay? And they have to be specific to whichever customer types you choose. Here's my example piece of work for Belfast. And remember that you have to do 2. So I've done Cave Hill and I've done the River Lagan. So those are my 2 natural features for Belfast. And then within each one, you can see my customer type 1, my customer type 2. So use that as a layout example. You can also use those natural features for your Belfast location as well, but obviously the information cannot be the same as mine. It needs to be different. You need to do your own research around Cave Hill and the River Lagan. Right, so the third key aspect of appeal is accommodation. We did talk about different types of accommodation in the exam unit that we've just covered. So this is basically like a recap. I've got here all different kinds of accommodation, and if you click, each one tells you what it is. It's like its definition. So you need to think in terms of your visitor type. So would a hostel be appropriate for an older couple? Probably not. They would probably suit a hotel or a B&B a little bit better. So you choose one type of accommodation for each of your customers in each of your locations. So for Belfast, I'm say here's my example piece of work. So I've chosen for young people a hostel, and for my family with young children, I've just chosen a normal hotel. And I've actually researched real hotels within Belfast, which is the Jury's Inn. I've got a picture off Google. I've got information about why it's going to appeal to that type of customer. So you can use that as a reminder, give you some hints as to what types of accommodation would appeal to different kinds of customers. This table is the sort of thing we would have done if we were in class. This is to get you to think about the different types of customers and what they need from their accommodation. So if you're choosing any of these, you can have a little glance and see what I've typed in here for you. So if you're talking about families with young children, you could say, okay, their accommodation needs to have a cot, needs to have babysitting services, things like that. And you can research that in terms of real accommodation within Belfast, within Portrush, within Fermanagh. So there's my example. And yeah, I've already went through that, haven't I? Key aspect of appeal 4 is facilities. Facilities is basically just a list of things that a customer would, or a tourist would use. So said facilities are things that tourists need to use to help them enjoy their tourist activities. They may be the place where the tourist activities take place, for example, a leisure centre. Facilities are kind of different. It's basically just anything that a tourist would need to use. And remember, you have to include 2 facilities for each of your locations. So it's like you can just pick off this list. My example of work, I've chose shopping. I've only done one. facility, so I would need to have done another one as well. So I've done shopping for young people and for families with young children. You can read through that to get an idea as to the sort of information that you need to include. But that's basically saying why that appeals to young people and why it appeals to families with young children. And I've stuck in a couple of pictures as well that are relevant to that. Key aspect of appeal number 5 is arts and entertainment. So what we mean by that is like theatres, cinemas, festivals, comedy shows, music like gigs, art galleries, dance and events. So I've got here a picture of like the nightlife in Belfast, the cinema, and then an annual event like Belsonic. Obviously, if you're talking about an older couple, you wouldn't be talking about a nightlife sort of entertainment or Belsonic. You would perhaps be sending them to like the Grand Opera House, or they might be attracted to the cinema. So you have to bear in mind, is it appropriate for your customer? And then you have to say, well, why specifically? What can they do? Why would it appeal to them? And here is my example of work. So I've talked about the SSE Arena, the Mac building, and the Grand Opera House. And again, it is relevant to young people and families with young children. So you can read through that, get an idea for what you need to include for arts and entertainment. So key aspect of appeal number 6 is sightseeing. So this is essentially what it is. It's when a tourist reaches a destination, there are ways in which they can get to know the destination quickly and easily through sightseeing. So there's different kinds of sightseeing. The most obvious one is probably the bus tours that you've probably all seen. But you can also do walking tours, you can do boat trips. And Belfast has an open top bus tour company, so you can talk about it. And they also have guided walks for different kinds of attractions within Belfast. So, for example, there's one about like the political aspect of Belfast, its history, things like that. So, depending on your customer type, they would then be attracted to different kinds of bus tours and different kinds of guided walks and things like that. Within Belfast, there's a really good type of tour that I've done a few years ago. It was really good. I think it's called like the Black Cab Taxi Tour, and it was basically like you and a couple of people in the back of a taxi, and they drove us around like all the different political aspects of Belfast, like the Peace Wall and the murals and things like that. And it was really interesting. It was quite good. So you might want to include that, and it would be attractive to basically any kind of visitor. And then the last, my example piece of work is I did the open top bus tour for Belfast, and basically this thing called the Belfast Splash Tour, which is essentially the same thing, only it's on the water, and it would be attractive to families with young children, obviously. And the last aspect of the appeal is transport. So for transport, it's essentially how you get to the location, and then also how you would then move in and around the location if it's quite big, like a city. Obviously, for the likes of Fermanagh, you're going to have to say how a tourist would get there, depending on which type of tourist they are. How they would then get around that area. Like, does it have trams, or does it have like the glider system the way Belfast does? Does it have a metro bus, things like that? And then, yeah, my example piece of work then for Belfast is I've talked about flying to Belfast, and then the glider system as well. Let me see. This is another way in which you can lay your coursework out. So I've covered all 7 of the key aspects of appeal, giving you examples of what they could look like. You have to then do those 7 aspects of appeal throughout your 3 locations, and you have to talk about the 2 types of customers within each key aspect of appeal. Like I said, at this point, you can just lay it out the way I have, like where you're just typing it on a Word document, or this person has done their seaside resort like this. It's kind of like a poster. I've said, remember that you have 3 different locations to cover, so you have to do Belfast, Portrush and Fermanagh, and for each one you have to cover those 7 key aspects of appeal for the 2 types of tourists that you choose. So here's an example piece of work for a different seaside resort. It's also an example of a different way in which you can lay it out. Now, I like this because it keeps it quite condensed, and it stops you from like going off and loads of information, including loads of information that you don't need to. So the other good thing about doing it like this is if you do it one way for your first location, you essentially would then just copy and paste it into another Word document, delete the information, but the layout is there and it keeps you organized in terms of what you have and haven't finished off. So say you leave all your boxes blank and then you fill them up as you go, and then you can say, oh, still need to do accommodation for that location, or I still need to do sightseeing for that location. The only thing I don't like about this one is that they haven't really specifically split up into the two different customer types for each one. So I would, if it were me, I would have it split into half, and I would say for customer type 1 and customer type 2. Okay. So this slide is essentially just tips for completing your coursework. So I've said that you can use Microsoft Word to simply type out your coursework. It can be in the form of a brochure or information posters. Brochures, there's that software, Microsoft Publisher. If you're a bit more into like designing and you're a bit more of a computer whiz that way, you can absolutely lay out your coursework in that format. It's the information that really matters. I don't really mind how you lay it out. I've said when researching the information about each location, use your own knowledge of the place as well as typing into Google entertainment in Portrush or sightseeing in Portrush or natural attractions in Belfast. So you actually have to type into Google to find out a lot of this stuff, but you might know about it yourself. So said, and look for things which would appeal to your two types of tourists. So a lot of this is going to be just Googling information, seeing what you can find and saying to yourself, is that relevant to my type of customer? And then you have to then put it into your words and say, right, okay, this attraction is would appeal to this type of customer because blah blah blah. Next one's quite important. So use headings throughout your work to ensure that you include all the information that you need to. So I've said use each bullet point from slide 5. So if you go all the way back to slide 5, you can see that I have split it up into those 7 key aspects of appeal, and you could use those as your subtitles. So your first piece of work would be on Belfast, then it would be you would have background information about Belfast, and then you would start into your 7 aspects of appeal, and each one of these would be its own paragraph, and within each one of them you would refer to your 2 types of customers. So basically quite similar to how I have done it in my examples that I've given you throughout. What else? You can use that as like a checklist as well. Next bullet point says, when including pictures in your work, just copy and paste directly from the internet or print screen them, paste them and crop them. Be quick with this, don't waste time looking through images. It's more about the written work, so I've said that already. It doesn't really matter about the images. It's more the quality of the work that you're typing that I'm interested in. And then lastly, work quickly and effectively to ensure that you meet the deadline. So like I've said on the instructions on Satchel, this is quite a big piece of work. So I'm going through all of that, you're probably like, whoa, that's a lot. If you were to split this up, you have 4 weeks from the set date to the due date, and that includes a week off for half term. You have 3 locations that you need to cover. If you try and do 1 location in 1 week, you'll be flying. You'll get this done for the deadline, and still allowing yourself a week off for the half term. So try and stick to that. The last thing here that I have for you is a checklist. So I've said use the following as a checklist to ensure that you do everything that you need to achieve your P4. Remember that you have 3 different destinations to cover. You have to cover Belfast, Portrush and Fermanagh. So this checklist, 1 to 15, is for 1 location. So if it were me, I would copy this into a Word document and I would start to type, and I would do my general introduction on my first location, which is Belfast. Once it's done, I would delete number 1, and that's it done. And then it would start to do the rest of it. And then by the end, that checklist is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller, and it keeps you right. It shows you what you still have to do. And then that's your first location done. It will probably take you the longest amount of time to do your first location, because you'll be getting into the swing of how to lay it out, how to find the information on Google, But once you've done your first location, it'll take you no time to do the next two. You're essentially doing the same thing exactly again, only the information is going to be slightly different because it's a different location and things that you can do within that location. So use that as a checklist, copy it and start to delete it as you produce it, and that will keep you right, hopefully. And that's it, really. If you get any questions about that, send me through a message and I'll get back to you as quick as I can. And well done. As I say, this stuff is quite hard, and if you're, all up to date at this point, and you're working on your coursework on the days that you're scheduled for travel and tourism, well done. You will get this done, and hopefully we will be back in school before we know it. And yeah, well done, and I'll see you next time.